Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Hey Look, a collection of Harvey Kurtzman's comedy strips from Timely Comics from the mid to late 40s. This book also has some of the comedy strips he did for other companies. Basically, this is a huge chunk of Harvey Kurtzman's comedy stuff before he went to EC Comics from the 40s. It's a pretty nice fat collection published by Kitchen Sink Press in the 90s. And some good stuff. These Hey Looks had appeared in so many different little places. So I read a bunch of them growing up. Harvey Kurtzman owns the copyright. So every now and then he'd let someone reprint them, sometimes in his own magazines. And I guess I only saw the later ones when he really, his style had matured. So it's kind of surprising reading this book because the early ones are so different. They're just kind of your average dopey one-page comic filler that would be in Golden Age comics. We have a nice introduction by EC Comics scholar John Benson, giving us all the background and really great intro. So this is the first Hey Look. It's really nice that they publish these all in chronological order, not necessarily by the chronology of how they were printed, because sometimes Stan Lee, who was the editor of Timely, would just, publish a comic that was a year and a half old. He just had them in inventory and would use them. But they found out the pay stub dates, or whatever you call it, and put them all in order the way Harvey Kurtzman wrote and drew them, as well as they could. So man, just seeing the progression, seeing Harvey Kurtzman become the Harvey Kurtzman that we know, it's pretty startling. All these Hey Looks are basically take place in a 3-year period. So it does have a very daffy, zany sense of humor, but I don't know. It's not much different than any other one-page comedy filler you'd find in a Golden Age comic. Just very silly. They he does do fourth wall things, which he'll become way more adept at. But for example, in this one, it's some goofy gag where they find that the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is full of pickle soup. That's the gag. But then they do have a final panel where the little guy's got a shotgun and the other guy says, "What you looking for?" The guy that wrote this gag. So it's kind of self-aware. But a lot of them don't really do that. Hey Look later on became known for that, for being aware that it was a comic strip, kind of formalistic experiments with panels and the comic format. But these are basically just silly gags. So I'm not going to get into all of them because there's I think 200 of these Hey Looks in here. But as you can see, you wouldn't really even know this is Harvey Kurtzman if somebody didn't tell you. I wouldn't have. The big guy gets taken in for questioning by the cops. They got him under the hot lamps when they're interrogating him. And he says, "Hold on a second," and he gets sunglasses and a bathing suit so he can tan. I mean, it's that kind of this goofy gag. But it does have this kind of, a kind of anarchic sense, which Harvey Kurtzman became known for, especially in Mad and later stuff. Yeah, it's amazing how different the art is. But man, you just totally see it incrementally changing into the other Harvey Kurtzman. This guy eats a bunch of corn and then stands near a stove to warm up, and it all pops. and it's coming out of his mouth. I mean, just silly, goofy stuff like that. Yeah, Harvey Kurtzman was just freelance then. I guess he would do like with these Haylooks, he'd do like one a week. And Stanley would just buy them until I think it got too experimental for Timely. And after 3 years, they kind of just said, nah, we don't want any more of these. They're kind of weird. Goofy things like this. They're playing a ping pong game so long that they all get beards, implying that they're playing it for like years or something. It's good, solid, funny cartooning, but not nearly as appealing to me as the style that he developed. He uses the beard gag again. They're doing something for so long. They grow beards. I think he would even reprint these in his, like in Humbug and Help. One of those. Because he was always tight for money. So that would have been a cheap way to fill a page. But it was always the later ones when his style had developed. These haven't been reprinted that much, these early ones. So I think we're already seeing kind of like, do you guys remember those UPA cartoons that kind of revolutionized animation with the, you know, not drawing lush, beautiful animation, just very stylized, simple cartoony figures. It kind of took over animation. Of course, it was cheaper to make. It took less work, but it was also like more interesting. And I can see a little of that influence. That like cool, hip 50s cartooning. I guess it was around the 40s too, like guys like William Steig, some of the New Yorker guys, just almost their cartooning almost becomes abstract. Yeah, see, they're definitely changing from the first ones, but they're going to change a lot more. It's amazing that how much it changes. Basically, the characters in here, the big guy's the dumb one. And the other one's not so smart, but he's smarter than the big guy. So that's the basis of most of the jokes. Getting more UPA-ish, like Gerald McBoing Boing, that kind of style. Now, look at this. We can see a change here. The way he's right up to the camera. And this one really breaks the fourth wall. They're pointing out at us, the reader. And they're saying, look, it's an optical illusion. See the characters there? It's just printed ink on comic book paper. That's how they see us. When you look close, you can see the little dots that make the color. And at the end, they're like, nah, I'm tired of this whole business. Let's tear it up. And he rips up the page. So this is definitely a change. There'll be more strips like this that are really like playing with the idea that they know they're in a comic book. They're painting landscapes here. And the dumb guy actually is painting the landscape, the backgrounds of the comic panel. And look how quickly the art has really gone like kind of abstract. It looks so much better to me, this style. Man, that's pretty quick. Let me just look back for a second. Yeah, it really does seem to take this leap. And this cartoon is so much more lively to me and fun to look at. There's a couple of half-pagers. I never knew there were half-page Hey-looks. Still, a lot of them are still very goofy, silly gags. I guess even the goofiest, silliest gags in here, though, I do like the sense of, like, surrealism. Like, anything can happen in these strips. Even if they're not breaking the fourth wall or doing the more, like, kind of clever stuff. They're just, like, people just walk on walls and walk on ceilings at the drop of a hat. The whole ocean spills out of this seashell when he tilts it. It's not the funniest gag, but... Man, look at this cartooning, how great it is. This could totally be like a Dan Clowes comic. Man, so much better, this cartooning. Look at this. It definitely works better for the kind of anarchic gags, you know, just anything can happen in these. Definitely starts using a lot more black and a lot more ink. The dumb guy keeps trying to jump into the river to kill himself. Which is kind of a weird plot idea for a funny comic strip. Because he realizes he's nothing but a two-dimensional caricature of life. I want to die. He's tired of his comic book existence. And the water keeps bouncing off the water. And then his friend says, "You're wearing a water repellent jacket." So it's just like... really corny gags, but it's kind of in this interesting, definitely something's going on here. He's playing hide and seek with these kids, and he's hiding for so long that, I like this, all their heads are just at various angles. They're teenagers by the time they find him. He's got a beard, the beard gag again. And, he's still counting. It took so long because he's so dumb he doesn't know how to count. Oh man, the lettering, everything looks so good in these now. It's going to actually get better. It's going to get even more crazy. This page, they're all just doing very silly things in every panel. Like kind of comedy tropes. Throwing pies at each other. Doing some slapstick violence. And then the little guy says, "We've given the reader a page full of entertainment. Let's knock off for lunch." Some fun lettering there. You can almost picture like Bill Elder redrawing these. Like he's already got the layout style, storytelling style that he's gonna use in Mad a few years later. Yeah, this one, the dumb guy's got a piece of chalk. He's like, I'm gonna draw a picture, and in the next panel, he's drawing himself in chalk. Then he finds a brush full of ink, and now he's gonna paint a picture in the next panel. There's a finger paint set right outside the page, and I don't think we'll be able to reach it. And they're leaning up against the panel border. It's very bizarre. Harvey Kurtzman draws himself here, drawing the characters. Such good design. All the pages are just wonderful, like pieces of design work. Some of the gags are still so dumb, though. In this one, he's going to meet the little guy for lunch, and he says, "You look terrible. Look at your face. Your penciling is showing." And you can see, like, it looks weird. It's like you didn't erase the pencils under the ink. He says, "Use this eraser. Go to the bathroom and clean yourself up." But when he comes back, he's invisible. He says, "Oh, I gave him an ink eraser." This page with the checkerboard effect. Every other panel is black or white. It's kind of nice. This is like the perfect comedy cartooning to me. It just looks so good. I like how they put these on two facing pages. This one's all like they're in snow, so everything's white. And this one, everything's black. Really nice shading there. Really good ink work. Look at this. Just having the negative panel space. Looks so good. Sorry, I don't have more cogent stuff to say about Harvey Kurtzman. I just like looking at these. Because like I said, a lot of the gags aren't that great. He tells the doctor he's a chain smoker because he's literally been lighting chains and puffing on them. Metal chains. That's what I'm talking about. This strip is really interesting. All of a sudden, Harvey Kurtzman does these beautiful, I think it's just like kind of heavy pencils. These backgrounds of beautiful, like, it looks like Europe. And it really doesn't add to the strip. It just makes it a cooler design. The way these guys with their heavy ink are popping out of the backgrounds. I think because in the introduction, Harvey Kurtzman mentioned in interviews, John Benson quotes him, that he was pretty much, he could do anything he wanted. And hey, look, he'd bring the strip in completely done. And Stanley would rarely say anything. He wouldn't edit him. Most comic guys did that. We're totally seeing the Harvey Kurtzman that we grew up loving. This strip is neat. Just the, I don't know, it doesn't even look like any other strip in this book. They're going on these crazy winding roads, winding up these mountains, but this is craziness. I don't know why. It seems more like some European comic to me. And look at the crazy logo. Very bizarre, but really neat. So now we're changing the style even more, becoming even more abstracted. We already see Harvey Kurtzman making catchphrases. You know, like in Mad, people would always say Portsabee or whatever. But this character, he's like, for the love of Kali. You know, just like every now and then there'll be these crazy sayings, these expressions that I think he just made up. So these are the Hey looks that I remember seeing as a kid. These later ones, this is the full-on style of Harvey Kurtzman. This looks like the layouts he would give to his artists. I've seen a few of those in like articles. Just the pure expression, the pure form. Doesn't even really care about backgrounds, except when he does, and then he goes nuts. Like, look at this. He does another crazy, beautifully drawn, these backgrounds. And once again, it really makes the main figure just pop out of there. Look at that. Oh man, this is even better. I like the intermediate style, but you know, the fully mature Kurtzman style is just like so good for comedy. It just looks funny, even when the gags aren't. His the one strip, he reused a strip in those earlier strips that are kind of, you know, not so well drawn. The same exact gag is in there, and with his new style, it is funnier. Just the body language and the manic energy of this style. It's still not a great gag, but it definitely reads a lot better. Look at that angry face. That's a really good rhino. This one's fun. He said he's doing homages to all these comic strip artists. He's reading Schmiel Schmeisner. And he says, oh, that Schmiel Schmeisner does a takeoff in his cartoon strip. On the cartoon strip, Schmiel Schmabner by Schmal Schmap. So goofy. Who does a takeoff on my ideal? Schick Schmacy by Schmester Schmould, who does a takeoff of Schmondi by Schmick Shung, who it just says, just plain takes off like this. It just has this really crazy ending. But look at Harvey Kurtzman doing Will Eisner here with the shadows. He even has his signature blowing in the wind on little scraps of paper. This is him doing Little Abner, Al Cap, and Dick Tracy. Pretty good. That's a fun one. But now we're back to the pure, just manic cartooning. Oh, that just looks so good. Just the energy of this. This is like kinetic. Oh man, I just want to look at these for 10 minutes each. This is a neat one with all these weird little panels. It's one of those shows where they would call up people, like Dial for Dollars, I think they were called. They just call up a random person. If you answered the phone in time, you'd get $1,000 or something. So they're showing all these people waiting by the phone, fighting for the phone. all throughout the city, or maybe the country, you know. So our two heroes even bring the phone into the movie theater. This is definitely a proto-Mad comic. It even has like the little introduction. And here's a comment on radio programs that keep billion of us in a state of nervous prostration by giving away thousands of dollars to the party that answers the telephone. So it's like, that could totally be one of those intros to a Mad article, you know, talking about some new phenomena and making fun of it. Just look at this stuff. It's so abstracted at this point, and it looks so good. Yeah, I think by this time, each of these Haylooks is just a masterpiece, even though they're still not that funny. Just as far as graphic design, storytelling, comic art, they're just phenomenal. We definitely see more Mad influence too, like more nonsense words, like that strip I just read to you with the schmick schmeishi, and using some like kind of Yiddish stuff here and there. Once again, look at this, totally making fun of advertising here, you know, years before Mad. Do people whisper behind your back? Those kind of ads, because you got bad breath or something. So he hears people whispering behind his back all the time. And so he washes himself with a certain soap that he saw advertised and a certain toothpaste. They're still whispering. And someone informs him, is like, yeah, everyone's whispering. This is a library. Somehow he didn't know he was in a library. Making fun of Rice Krispies. Just turns into this total anarchy. The Rice Krispies are shooting around the whole kitchen. I love that panel. We can see with the lettering here, that totally looks like some great EC panel. If that wasn't an oven there, and if it was a tank, that's totally a panel from like Two-Fisted Tales. It demolishes the kitchen table. So he is just going to eat soft, lumpy oatmeal from now on. This one's kind of fun because Harvey Kurtzman did not like superhero comics. This one, he's parodying them. And our two heroes turn into these superheroes. Hey and Look. And this is so like pre-super duper man. Look at them, bullets bouncing off their chest and they're just standing there coolly. But this is during the time of crime comics. And comics were getting pretty violent in the late 40s. So he has them with guns just killing these guys. Look at the look on his face there. And then they're in a bloodbath, literally. They're like, blood, look at all the blood. Let's go back to Hey Look. Where nobody dies, no guts to clean up, nothing. No matter how violent you are, there's no gory repercussions. That's an interesting one. Man, now we're full on getting abstract. There's like some crazy modern art, but it's basically just the guy shaking. He's shaking this little puzzle to wiggle it apart. Some crazy stuff. It's like New descending a staircase, showing movement with just a pen and ink. Kind of neat. Look how weird this guy's drawn. He's like a devil. Once again, the beautiful backgrounds. Totally realistic. That looks so good. So it's so sad that, of course, as he gets better, these comic strips get way better. they get a little too good for comic books. And Stan Lee was getting tired of them. He was like, these are weird. I don't like them. They don't really fit in. There's no house style going on, you know? Look at that panel. I definitely read this one when I was a teenager somewhere. I have no idea where. Some of these were very familiar, and I was like, oh yeah, I read that years ago. He's showing off how good he is at flipping eggs. And then he says, and then at the last panel, though, the other guy says, hey, you flipped the panel over. I wish Hey Look went on a little longer and did more of those kind of gags. They're not like knee slappers, but they're kind of fun and cute when he plays around with the comic conventions. It is kind of sad, though, how so many of the gags are really dumb. I don't know, humor is different every decade, so maybe they were fucking hilarious in 1948. I don't know. I mean, Little Nemo and Slumberland's a wonderful, beautifully drawn strip, but it was never funny. It's just kind of dumb. The writing isn't very good. Some of this like shading looks like it could be like Thomas Ott, and like almost like duplicating that woodcut style. Really, he's just totally experimenting because he can, and he's loving it. In interviews, Harvey Kurtzman said he was like really fun, really fulfilling doing these strips. He could just do pretty much whatever he wanted with no editorial interference. And it shows. Look how he changed in 3 years. He just went nuts. He was just like, fuck that. I'm going to draw like this. Nobody else in comics draws like this at all, but I'm going to. Just every strip, as they progress, has more and more interesting shading. Just trying it out sometimes for one panel. God, that looks so good with the black backgrounds. I like these lettering here. We'll see that later in Mad. The lettering's like just coming out at you. It's so loud. And here's the very last one. Talking about playing with the form. I don't know if he did this just because he was in a rush. Deadline was approaching. But it shows the logo panel all this time. He says, what's the matter with you? We've been delaying this gag for 10 panels. Please, Mr. Boss Man. My partner, out of the clear sky, he suddenly has stage fright. And so he's like hiding behind the wall of the panel, actually clutching at the panel and warping it, the panel edge. He's trying to pull him out. That's a nice one. Oh, man. Sad they didn't continue. So now Potshot Pete was drawn for Toby Press. That was a comic book company owned by Al Cap's brother. And he gave Harvey Kurtzman a lot of work when he needed it. And once again, didn't give him much editorial interference. So these are nice little, taking all the things he's learned from doing these Hey Looks, doing like semi-long form stories, 5-6 page stories. And Potshot Pete is a typical Western hero, just a good, all-around good guy. He's the sheriff of this town. And there's a couple of one-page strips here first before we get to the longer stories. And once again, they're kind of goofy little gags. But it's weird. I don't know if these were done. No, these were done in 1950, it says, because these almost look like the intermediate style we saw in Hey Look, like 48, 47, around then. I should have mentioned this, by the way. I love this, that this book does this. In tiny print on the first page of every comic, they tell you where it was printed and the date. I wish more collections would do that. So now, even though it's the same year, we see that fully mature Harvey Kurtzman style. I mean, he'd draw like this for decades. Well, he pretty much stopped drawing eventually and just let other guys draw his layouts. So basically, he's got this long-suffering girlfriend. I think she's his fiance. And she's always just like, kiss me. You haven't kissed me. And we're childhood sweethearts. You still haven't kissed me. He'd rather kiss his horse. It's like that typical, pure-hearted sheriff guy. So some bad guy's coming to town. Everyone's freaking out. Just look at this cartoon here. This is just so good. And these gangsters show up. And they're like, hey, we're taking over the town. But then he hears an episode of Gangbusters on the radio and says, oh, I'm going to use newfangled policing techniques to clean up the town. And he revs out on his motorcycle now. And he totally takes care of that, the villain, two-gun zilch from the opening panel. He's already gotten rid of the mobsters, apparently. And then the girlfriend says, oh, now that you've gotten rid of your horse, maybe you'll give me a kiss now. And he's kissing his motorcycle instead. That's a pretty funny gag, actually. Another Potshot Pete. I should mention he's the sheriff of Yucca Gulch. In this one, the Apaches are on the warpath. Of course, the girlfriend still wants a kiss. That's the running gag in the comic. And I'm pretty sure she's never going to get one. He goes undercover to find out who's smuggling guns to the Apaches. So he dresses up as one and is hiding in their camp. And they find him. Man, this is just some fun cartooning here. Also so animated, his mature style. It looks like people are really moving. Like it's really just lively cartooning. Even in the middle of the camp. And at this point, she is almost like this abstract figure who's just constantly in this position. Looking up for a kiss with her huge bosoms pointing towards the sky. Now look at this. Speaking of EC, look at these panels. This could totally be panels from Two-Fisted Tales or Frontline Combat. Just drawing straight. Because the cavalry arrives. So, of course, Harvey Kurtzman pushes the gag. Not only do they arrive on horse, but it's like they bomb them. These gunboats out in the ocean. And all the Apaches are dead at the end. I think all these Potshot Pete stories were reprinted in Kurtzman Comics, which was an underground kitchen sink did in the 70s of all Kurtzman stuff. That's just from my bad memory, though. Maybe they didn't reprint all of these. Look at the girlfriend. So ridiculous. So in this one, the McYetnit boys, see, already having the silly names, the kind of funny sounding names, and Potshot's actually afraid. He's like trying to avoid them. Nice stuff. So I think these were also done for that Toby Comics. Genius, another little character he had for, I don't know, a few one-pagers. And obviously, definitely not as experimental as Hey Look. And, but look at this, like, nice little style. Like, I'm amazed this wasn't a Sunday comic strip, you know, syndicated strip. It's a really just nice, clean, slick style. And Genius is one of those typical, like, Dennis the Menace kids. He's always causing trouble. Huh, I wonder, yeah, same year. So, like, he did two that are kind of straight. I think most 1950, this was like, oh yeah, that's nice cartooning. But then he's getting a full-on Harvey on him. Like crazy shading. Man, look at that Peter Bag figure. Fuming in anger. Yeah, he's a bratty little kid. At this point, though, no matter what style he has, it all looks amazing. Like I think he's pretty much a master of cartooning at this point. And that's it for Genius. I'm pretty sure they don't really say it out loud, or not out loud. They don't say it implicitly, but exactly. But I think this is all the Genius strips they were, because I don't even think Toby Comics lasted that long. So this last comic strip is Egghead Doodle, and these were actually still these were published by Timely. So even after Hey Look was canceled, every now and then Stanley would buy some of these strips to publish in the comics. And as you can tell, it's a way more straight. It's almost like going back to his old style, because Stanley didn't like his new style. It was too extreme for him, you know, too radical. So I get Doodle and his little brother. They're just typical cute little kid comics type stuff, you know, with silly gags. I love this when cartoonists make fun of modern art. They're in a museum and they say all this weird, like, I don't know, surrealist, bizarro shit. The little brother says, look at that painting, it's realistic. It looks real enough to touch. And it's the window, so he falls out. That's the kind of humor we're dealing with here. They open up a dog washing business, and there's no business, so he tells his little brother, he says, go scare up some business. Sorry, I just said business a lot. All of a sudden, all these people bring their dogs and they're filthy. So business is booming. It turns out that the little brother went to the coal yard and is luring all the dogs with a bone on the end of a fishing rod, making all the dogs dirty. That's kind of cute, I guess. Yeah, these aren't nearly as good. But they're still damn nice little strips. I mean, especially in 1950. I mean, definitely humor changes. And that's it for Hey Look. I'm pretty sure these have been reprinted since then, because I think this is out of print. It probably must be, since Kitchen Sink Press went out of business. But, yeah, whatever format you can get these. But this is a great one, because it has everything complete chronologically. And as you saw, if you watch this whole video, it's pretty remarkable just seeing how he evolves as a cartoonist. It's really startling. And it's fun as hell. because by the time he does evolve, it's some of the most beautiful comic strips I've ever seen. They're so nice. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.